One of the key reasons why gender recognition was on the agenda back then was the work that Lydia Foy and Flack had done in highlighting the issue through the courts. And it was a key commitment in the programme for government in 2011 that we would legislate for gender recognition, marriage equality, and also legislate in relation to the X case. These were legacy issues that needed to be dealt with, and I felt would never have been dealt with only for the Labour Party in government. So it was a real honour for me to have the opportunity to bring the legislation through both the Dáil and the Seanad. It was a real privilege to meet the families that were affected, to see the work that Tenny done on the ground. Certainly the telling of real life experience of both parents where they have a trans child, but also in relation to individuals coming and telling their story and telling the stories to the TDs and senators in Leinster House that allowed the easy passage through both houses. One of the personal stories that hit me very clearly was in 2016 when I came across an elderly lady in Donnybrook that was trans, had lived her life, but she says the sense of freedom that my own state recognises me was actually very moving. And this was a working class lady that had suffered from discrimination, certainly in her earlier life, because people weren't aware of the issues, didn't realise there was a trans community, felt isolated for a long time, but yet towards the end of her life felt that she was recognised by our own state. Over the working out the detail of the legislation, Tenny certainly played a very key role, but also there was some very good officials in the Department of Social Protection that worked with me to make sure that we had the best outcome in relation to legislation. And I think it proved the idea of engagement, and especially engagement with Tenny and the families affected and the individuals affected, that we got so progressive legislation in the time. And then I think what was very important at the end of it is, because this was such groundbreaking legislation here in Ireland, that we actually put in a review period to make sure we got it right and see how we could improve on the legislation that we put in place. Now what we need to do is build on that for the future. There's still many issues that are affecting the LGBT community, both locally and nationally. And what I want to see is proper health facilities now put in place for the LGBT community, which in many cases have not had easy access to those. And again, to raise it on an international basis is because many of those communities now are still discriminated against and in many ways violently assaulted. And I think there's a strong role for Ireland in an international way to highlight the issues now that we have dealt with it through legislation in our own republic.